Welcome to Vantage Point. I'm Hisham Al Maligi. I've been away for a while since last Thanksgiving. I've had some family emergency and calamity, but I will talk about that some other time. Tonight, opening this season with a treat for you and a gift for you. I have attorney Zarinah Nadir joining us tonight to speak about her book, Legally Savvy. Let me bring Zarina in. Zarina, welcome to Vantage Points. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, Ishan.
Thank you. So, first of all, so people know how to pronounce your name, Zarina Nadir, correct?
Beautiful.
And you are the author of Legally Savvy. Whoops, that's upside down. This is it. That's your book, and it's had a lot of praise. I'm gonna mention a couple of them actually from people who wrote for you. And let me bring that. So, first of all, sorry, it's been a while since I've done this. I need to introduce you properly. So, Zarina Nadir is an award winning attorney, author, and agent of social change. We need to talk about that part. She's a consultant for individuals, artists, businesses, and emerging entrepreneurs. A longtime community organizer from Phoenix, Arizona, Zarina founded the Legally Savvy movement to disrupt everyday perceptions of lawyers and help people feel more comfortable, confident, empowered, and less stressed while navigating the legalities of love, life, and business. Her first book is Legally Savvy, and the subtitle is Your Guide to Avoiding Headaches and Heartbreaks in Love, Life, and Business. It just launched not so long ago as the number one new release in 15 categories and went on the bestseller list in 10 categories. Congratulations. This is an amazing achievement, and thank you very much for doing it. As we're going to see, the book is very helpful to so many people who do not understand the legalities of love, life, and and business. But first, let me say this from one of the praises. Those of us who grew up without access to lawyers and knowledge of the legal system owe Zarina a world of thanks. Who said that? It's Dean Douglas Sylvester, who's a former dean of Arizona State University College of Law. This is big. You know what I mean? So tell me about you. What made you write this book? And we'll get into the contents of the book.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Hisham. It's an
Thank
honor
you.
to be here. And as you mentioned, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I was raised by woke parents from New York. They grew up in the 70s and raised me in the 80s and 90s. And by the time I hit 2000s, right, the 2000s, I was in college. And I was the vice president of the Muslim Students Association. This was 2001.
Hmm.
And I was majoring in Spanish at that time, loved it, had just returned from a trip from Guadalajara, and I was deciding on kind of my next stage and next phase of life. And I was thinking be a professor, work for the UN, who knows, something like that, something that would build bridges. And 9/11 happened.
Hmm.
And I saw, plain as day, some of the history, um, some of the past really kind of bringing itself back into the future. Coming from an African American background, I've always learned about the civil rights movement and the issue, and I also studied it in school as well, related to overreaching of the FBI within the African American community. And I saw the exact same thing within
Hmm.
kind of this next community, the Muslim community, which I intersect as
Hmm.
well. I saw challenges where there were members of our community who were being questioned. They were being invited down to the offices of the FBI, and some of them did not come back.
Mm,
And this just made very clearly what my next language was that I needed to learn, and it was the law.
mm,
And so, this takes it back kind of a little bit, but it all kind of feeds into what got me to the point to write this book. So I entered law school, became an attorney, served as a public defender as well. I also served as the director of admissions at my Arizona State University College of Law also. And then I was also in private practice. And I saw again, um, me going into law school, wanting to become someone who would remove barriers of access to justice, but I ended up becoming a barrier to access
wow.
to justice. I saw
Mm,
that there were people who were checking their wallet before they were checking their rights. They were coming
mm,
to me more of a last resort rather than a first resort. And I saw the challenges and the disparities of that and the issues that people have when
mm,
we are handling legal issues in an emergency
mm,
era rather than in a proactive arrangement.
mhm,
And so it put me really on a quest to figure out how do I help more people have the legal access that they need and that they deserved. I partnered up with an organization that figured that out. They have a completely different model that enables people to have access without dealing with kind of that traditional model of the high hourly fees. But I still saw another issue, and it was an
mm,
issue of a lack of education. Even though they had the access now, they still were using attorneys as a last resort. And it was
mhm,
because the rest of us were taught, right, not to use attorneys. We were taught
right.
that the only time you use an attorney is if you're a bad person, right? Lawyers are
Mhm,
just for bad things. We were taught that
mhm,
you only use a lawyer if your uncle's going away to jail or if you're in the middle of a nasty divorce, right?
right.
That's not the way the super wealthy utilize attorneys. That's not
Mhm,
the way the super wealthy use attorneys. And so I have been able to educate my family about how to be more legally savvy, the way the super wealthy utilize attorneys. I've been able to instruct my clients that way. I've been able to be fortunate to work with different organizations and to present to them and present to different courses and to teach business owners, individuals, community members how to be more legally savvy. And I saw the difference it made. And really, that is what encouraged me and inspired me to put it down into a book because I knew I could only be in so many places. But this is not just a US issue, this is a global issue that if we don't know our rights, we don't have them. And
right.
so, understanding that, understanding how to catch legal issues at the legal cough level before they become legal pneumonia is what drove me to be able to put
Mm.
this information into a book because we don't have to have the pain and suffering that a lot of us have. A lot of it is preventable if we just have the knowledge.
So amazing. And we spoke before, so I understand more what you're saying, but this is a lot, and let's try to unpack it for the listeners and the viewers. So first of all, you mentioned that you were the head of the MSA in your college. Is that a terrorist organization or what is the MSA?
Thank you. I should have said that. The Muslim Students Association. And actually, we were one of the largest and most active organizations on our college campus. And so we worked with a lot of different organizations. And at that point, when September 11th happened, we were, thrust on kind of a spokesperson stage. And to
Hmm.
serve as a spokesperson for our community, we also went into the security mode of our fellow brothers and sisters who were Muslim students to ensure that no one was walking by themselves. The first hate crime that happened after September 11 happened not too far from us, also
Mm.
in my state. And so we were
The
definitely
Sikh
on high
person,
alert. Say that again.
the Sikh
The Sikh
man,
brother. That's right. That's right. That was
he
the
was
main.
killed.
That's right. And it was
Hmm.
not too far from where I live, and not too far from the university. It was that same kind of area. So we were aware, we were alert, and so we saw that there were some of our Muslim students. We had Saudi students at that time
Hmm.
who were their home was raided by the FBI. I mean, there was a lot that was going on. It was very intense to continuously
Hmm.
be a student and to be a spokesperson, to be a
Hmm.
student and to be security guards for each other. And
Hmm.
so I'm very grateful that I had an incredible president as well to partner with me and an incredible team, and the community rallied behind us. But there was a lot who were looking to us to be leaders, and there's only so much activists can do, right? We were activists at that stage, and that was really when I learned, an activist can, march for you. They can, and really a lot can be accomplished by an activist. But when you enter into that courtroom, you need to be a lawyer.
So you were the head of the MSA, and you are visibly Muslim. You're wearing the hijab. So is this book about how Muslims should deal with the law?
This book will help Muslims, but it will help people of all different backgrounds. I have multiple intersectionalities to my identity. I'm a Muslim woman. I'm an African American. I was raised in the Southwest. I was raised in a community with a lot of members of the Latino community as well. And so, I really bring all of this experience to my back. And I'm a lawyer, right? So I bring this to the forefront. And so the stories that I share, some of them pertain to maybe some of my ethnic background, my religious background, but some are just going to pertain to just all of us from
Mhm.
all different backgrounds. Really, it's for the rest of us. Those of us who
Right,
didn't grow up with the unfettered access to attorneys. Those of us who didn't
right.
grow up with, attorneys just at our disposal, like the
Hmm.
Rockefellers. This is who this book is for. So
Hmm.
anyone can get guidance from this book. And interestingly, I have a lot of attorneys who said, "Wow, I wish I had that book when 20 years ago."
Definitely, and one other praise. Let's look at what was said. It's an important tool in the mission for access to justice. This is Jeff Bell. He's the CEO of Legal Shield, one of the major companies or firms that work to make access to legal documents available for the wider public with, not exuberant, fees and stuff. So definitely, the book has a lot of witty parts to it, and it speaks to the lay person, and it speaks to those definitely that are not, as you said, they have a lawyer on staff or on call or on retainer 24/7. We're not Trump, we're not Clintons, we're not Bidens. For the rest of us, as you mentioned, we're going to get deeper into what the contents of the book and the different examples that you provided, but I still want to talk more about your story and your history so people get to know you more and understand the importance of why you put this together. So, you graduated as a lawyer from Arizona State, was it?
Yep, Arizona State University.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then you worked as a public defender. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I was fortunate to serve as the one of the founding attorneys in our juvenile public defenders role. So that's a department that was focusing on juvenile dependency, the
Hmm.
parents who had their children removed from their home for abuse or neglect allegations. The public defender role is that space where you have an attorney that the government is going to pay for you if you are unable to pay for an attorney yourself,
Hmm.
kind of that Miranda rights, right? When we hear you have the right to
Hmm.
remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you. You have an attorney, right? If you cannot afford one,
Right.
so that's the role that I was fortunate to be able to serve in, and it was an incredible opportunity. But what I saw was still the disparity, right? If people are not able to have ready access to attorney, one, if people are not able to have ready access to attorneys, they are at the whim of what's given to them, right?
Hmm.
And as a public defender, I take offense to the public pretender, kind of concept in those jokes, right?
Hmm.
Because I know that myself and my colleagues worked very hard in our offices.
So, what is the public defender? How are they hired? Who pays for them? And tell us the story for those who are unaware of how the system works.
Sure, absolutely. So it's a government hired firm basically. So you obviously have a supervising attorney and such, and so they make the calls as far as the hiring decisions. But we're government employees. I was an employee of the county, my county, and
Hmm.
so that's how you're compensated. So a client to be able to utilize the public defender system, that person would have to be assigned a public defender. You can't go to a public defender office and just say, I'm disadvantaged. Can I utilize you? You have to actually be assigned. And what's really powerful is public defenders are only utilized for very minute. There's a very small area that public defenders can be utilized. So
Hmm.
sometimes we think, oh, I can get a public defender, but no, that right, that Miranda right, that constitutional right that we have, it really only pertains to two areas. One is that you are have facing a loss of your liberty, or loss of your children. And so meaning if you're going to jail, but you don't have a public defender who's available to you if you're in a domestic violence issue. You do
Mm.
not get a public defender available to you if you're being evicted from your home. You do not get a public defender available to you if you are facing job discrimination. So the majority of the time, we as people in this country, we're responsible to be able to retain and access attorneys and legal counsel all on our own. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's great that it's there. This is a huge, unique, beautiful aspect within our society that we do have something like this for those who don't meet that income threshold. But Hisham, there's so many people who make just enough to not be able to qualify, right, for a public
Mm-hmm.
defender, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't make enough to be able to really hire an attorney, like you
Right.
said, the Bidens and the Trumps and right and the
Right.
Clintons.
Right.
They don't have
So
that kind of access. So what do
what
they?
is sure? What is the average ballpark? The attorneys are hired by the hour, correct? So, what is the average hour fee for an attorney for, let's say, somebody to represent you for your children, being, somebody the ACS? We have it here in New York. It's called the ACS. I don't know the Children's Service. What is it called in Arizona? But in that case, how much an hour for an attorney to represent you in such a case?
So, and ours is DCS, Department of Child
Okay.
Safety. So very similar. So again, you wouldn't be able to go into the ACS office. You wouldn't be able to go into the DCS office and say, "Represent me." You have to be the appointed, right? Once
Mm-hmm.
you're in the court system already, then that is appointed for you if you meet the income threshold. So typically speaking, and I'm really glad you're bringing this up because this is information that so many of us do not have.
Mm-hmm.
But we know enough to just kind of be scared, and consequently we handle issues that really should be handled by an attorney. We just handle them in a, we pray about it, we post it on Facebook. We're not handling it properly because
Mm-hmm.
we're just so scared about how to get in, right? What's the threshold to get in?
Right.
Typical hourly fee for attorneys, it really ranges based on the kind of law that you're dealing with, as well as the locale. So in Arizona, a good average hourly fee for an attorney is about $300 to $400 an
Wow.
hour. But my
Mm.
colleagues in New York, you guys trump us over
Uh-huh.
there. You can be, the 5, the 6, the 7. I know some colleagues in the East Coast who have a comma right in their hourly fee. And
Mm-hmm.
so these are part of that's the traditional model
Mm-hmm.
that's out there. And this has been a model that has really price locked out the rest of us from
Mm-hmm.
really getting the guidance, really getting the assistance that we need to not to not even just to even survive,
Mm-hmm.
to thrive, to live more vibrantly, to make sure that even just our day-to-day life is
Mm-hmm.
handled better. And
Right.
without this kind of guidance, without utilizing this tool, these are the issues that we see. We see, like my era, when I saw that people were going away and having those conversations with the FBI, they didn't think they could afford an attorney at that time. Some of them did not come back. I mean, this is as
Mm-hmm.
how serious it can be. On a personal kind of family level, we have people who are not able to represent themselves. Maybe they've been in a domestic violence relationship, and now they need to get out of that relationship, and they do not have the means to
Mm-hmm.
procure and access an attorney. But I also like people to take a step back. That's the pneumonia, right?
Mm.
That's when issues have become so severe that it's expensive, just like medical matters, right?
And on that point you mentioned, we have to deal with the cough before it becomes pneumonia. So
It's
that's a very vivid example to make the point. Before the issue balloons and becomes unmanageable for you, reach out to a lawyer, and this book helps you in so many different scenarios to understand what's required to be able to maneuver in the system. So let's take those two examples. For example, the domestic violence case, the child Department of Child Care case. I mean, not child care, whatever it's called, and also in case you're contacted by law enforcement. Let's talk about those three scenarios and tell us something from the book.
Excellent. So, let's start from the cough level. The cough
Mm-hmm.
level would be, and this is domestic violence awareness time also. So I'm really glad that we're going to talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
because these are issues that sometimes we think we get involved in them because we weren't smart or somebody wasn't, they were on the, not too sharp side. So that's how they got caught up in this. But there's so many people who can get caught in these
Mm-hmm.
kinds of relationships, and so the cough level of that, and this is what the book is helping us to understand: how to catch things sooner, how to really recognize when we should be working on an issue, when there are legalities. There was a research that found that only 1/3 of people can actually spot and recognize that the issue has a legal component. The rest of us, we chalk it up to bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Muslims, we chalk it up to the alhamdulillah, syndrome, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
alhamdulillah,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have this kind of, we don't remember the tire camel, right, aspect,
Right, right,
right? So
right.
with domestic violence, this starts way, way, way earlier. This
Mm-hmm.
starts with before we are even into a relationship. We get guidance
Mm-hmm.
on is this a good marriage contract that I'm getting into? Is it
Mm-hmm.
actually marriage? We have some people in our communities who are getting married, but they're only getting married in the religious centers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting their civil documents in place.
Mm-hmm.
That At that point, we have seen so much abuse there. And
Right.
so when it is time for them to maybe get out of the relationship, and the perpetrator of the abuse says to them, oh, I can just divorce you. And they don't know what their rights are. They don't know if the contract that they have that was written in the mosque can hold up anywhere and
Mm-hmm.
allow them to be able to get any kind of assistance or any guidance. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen scenarios where there have been abuse of those who had immigration, and they are saying things over their head that I can deport you, I can send you back, I can.
Wow.
And they don't know their rights. They don't know, can
Mm-hmm.
they not do the can they
Mm-hmm.
really do that? Do they have the power? And
So,
so we hear all of this information, and when we don't know, again, when we don't know our rights, then we are
right.
subjected to what anyone tells us.
So let's actually, since you brought it up, let's talk about this marriage thing, the religious marriage component. Of course, it depends on the individual cases. Like, not every one of them is an abusive case. So, but isn't the Islamic marriage contract in and of itself a prenuptial agreement if it's done right?
You know, that's a really that's a huge question,
Hmm.
because to have a prenuptial agreement in the US, it has to be done according to the Uniform Prenuptial Agreement Act.
Okay.
And most of us do not know what those terms are. We haven't engaged in it. So a contract from our religious institutions typically have a lot of Arabic on them.
Mm-hmm.
They have, even if it's not the Arabic letters, it's the transliteration. So it says things like, this marriage is according to the Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu
Mm-hmm.
alaihi wasallam,
Sallallahu alayhi wa
and
sallam.
we love it. It's beautiful, right? And
Mhm.
but that is not a prenuptial agreement in the United States.
Correct. Because it wasn't done properly to include what's needed.
To include what's needed and to also translate,
Hmm.
right? Because if a lot of time, and then it's a one pager, so it says in accordance to the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we, well, not actually, a lot of Muslims don't even know what those rights are. Let's be real.
Mm,
I mean,
mm,
I like to
mm.
be real about that.
Right,
So
right,
we
right.
say we think we know, but we don't. But for
Hmm.
it to be actually a prenuptial agreement, you're going to want to have that ran by an attorney. You're
Hmm.
going to not just have it say under the guidance of Islam. You're
Hmm.
going to want to actually have it written out, meaning the wife's property is her sole and separate property,
Mm.
right? For example, these are some terms that we would need to
Right,
include.
right.
The In case of a dissolution, these are the responsibilities, right? Not just according to Islam. If we get divorced, it's according to Islam.
Right.
That doesn't help a single person
Y-
here in this country, and we know it hasn't because we've seen time and time again
mm,
of these issues coming to head, and trying to take it to court. The maher is not able to be recovered when people aren't getting that early.
hmm
um we see a lot of abuse of power. We've even seen circumstances where there have been brothers, unfortunately, who have gone into court and said, no, I'm not actually married to that person, because they're trying to avoid their concept of having to give 50-50, having to give half of their income. And they literally say, we weren't married. And then she's saying, wait, we are. This is the paper. And they're saying, no, that wasn't, we weren't married. No, that wasn't
and
married.
again, that sorry, that brings also the issue of Islamically it is not 50-50, but there are specified ways to do it. But I heard it from a lawyer before that you cannot refer to another set of laws in your contract. You have to specify and list the items what they are. So definitely, because here's the thing: someone, I mean, we know it happens. Okay, someone is married to more than one wife, a Muslim married to more than one wife in the United States, um, cannot register legally in American civil, like Borohol or whatever it is, more than one. So the second one will not be registered. So, is there a way to create an accurate, workable um, marriage agreement that would preserve the rights of both parties, but particularly in this case, the wife who happens to be the second one who's not legally registered in American law? So, in case of divorce, in case of abuse, in case of rights, in case of anything, because let's face it, it happens and it will continue to happen. So, how do we maybe resolve? And maybe this is your second book idea. I don't know. Tell me.
I don't know if that's this question comes up. It comes up amongst our community.
hmm
And the sad thing is, our society in the West is not structured to protect those kinds of relationships.
hmm
And according to Islam and our code of Muslims, right, the Sharia, our code,
hmm
prevention of harm is very important. That's a very
hmm
core, fundamental aspect of our Islamic law.
hmm
So, in a country like the US and other Western countries that do not abide by Sharia codes, where there are these kinds of protections, they're not advisable. They are highly not advisable.
hmm
It's a very precarious, dangerous situation to get into, and
hmm
you're really only at the whim of the taqwa of the husband, in
hmm
those kinds of scenarios. Now,
hmm
are there documentation that someone could get involved in? And have they been challenged yet to the point where we would know they would actually stand up? I'm not sure,
hmm
And so, but can you, tailor a will to make sure that provisions are made for a first wife and a second wife, but to make sure
hmm
they don't call them that, because if something like that ends up in the courts,
hmm
those are kinds of things that this is what we have to keep in mind is how would it be enforced in the eyes of the court that you're going before, and
hmm
in the eyes of the court that you'd be going before in the US, something like I have two wives, that is not going to stand.
hmm
That is called
Yeah.
void for public policy. So
This called
it's a
what? I'm
very
sorry.
precarious issue to be able to kind of go into that. And Islam says when you are engaging in polygyny, then there has to be equality. And if you're
hmm
not able to come out of the shadows, if you're not able to come forth and clearly say, I am a wife and I have these rights, then I don't think Muslim men would want to put a woman in that position. And I don't think a sister would really, if she knew, really
hmm
understood that doing that in this country, it's not the best position to be in.
So this is a religious philosophical debate within the Muslim community. I guess we're gonna have to come back to it at
We
some
could,
point.
yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
like I said, if we're in a country that supports these kinds of relationships,
hmm
so if you're in the U.S., then we do have certain guidelines. We do have
hmm
certain obligations that we live under, and there are ways to have our rights protected. But we also have to understand the law here. We have to
Right.
understand, so if it's absolutely illegal here, I mean, we just really need to think about that. But
Right.
it's not illegal everywhere. So if that's
Right.
a practice that someone is interested in practicing, then you want to practice it in a place that everyone is going to be able to have equality. Everyone's going to be able to be protected. And of course, we don't go into marriage thinking, oh, there's going to be divorce, but we have to go into marriage thinking there could be problems. I mean,
Right.
that's just the reality. And our
Right.
deen teaches us that as well. So,
Hmm.
I'm not saying do it or don't. What I'm saying is if you're in a nation that doesn't, if you're going to practice it in a nation that protects it, that provides
Right.
safeguards. That's my
I
take
mean,
on
my take on this is it's inevitable. It happened. It happens. It will happen. So we need to come up with solutions to avoid or to minimize the harm. So we'll continue talking about this. And again, if I mean maybe that would be an interesting topic to get scholars and lawyers together to see if there is a workable solution. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Zarinah Nadir. She's a lawyer from Phoenix, Arizona, and she's the author of Legally Savvy, a witty and layperson written to the layperson to understand the jungle that is American law and court system and judicial system in a way that makes you able to navigate with less hassle and for those of us who do not have the resources of the Rockefellers, the Trumps, and the Clintons, and the others. So let's talk about something else from the book, the other items that we mentioned. So, for example, if someone is being visited by the FBI or other law enforcement, and the children situation.
Okay, so when we are visited by law enforcement, the CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations, came up with something very witty recently, and they said no chai for the FBI.
Mm,
And that really just speaks to the amount of uh, discomfort that a lot of us have with the authorities, right?
hmm.
But also lack of understanding of why they show up at our doors.
Right.
Sometimes we think, okay, they come with this, kindness, and they ask to just come in. And a lot of us were raised to, be welcoming and embracive, and so we invite them in, and then we, invite them to have tea with us,
Hmm.
and all the while they are there on duty. They are there recording everything that you say, that
Hmm.
you do, and that they see around
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
And so, one of the hacks, and Legally Savvy is organized around 50 hacks. So
Hmm.
one of the hacks is to understand the magic words.
Hmm.
And there are magic words when we're dealing with law enforcement. And one of them is to be able to ask to remain silent, right? Invoke your right to remain silent.
Hmm.
It's also if we're working and they perhaps come to our home without a warrant. Some of the magic words is I would like to see a warrant.
Hmm.
So if there isn't a warrant, then we do not want to invite them into our home. We
Hmm.
have to understand that anything we say can and will be used against you.
Hmm.
Another hack is asserting your rights is not rude.
Hmm.
So many of us, especially I would say my immigrant brothers and sisters or the descendants of the immigrant brothers and sisters, they really were kind of taught this just from their parents when they came here. They were taught, don't ruffle any feathers, stay low. And if if there are authorities, just comply, just be compliant, just be
Hmm.
passive and compliant, and then and you don't have anything to hide, so just share what they need, and then that will mean that they'll leave you alone, and
What
that's not
happens? What happens if you lie, even inadvertently, to a federal law officer?
exactly.
What happens in this case?
It's considered a crime, right? And so we
Mm.
had a case like that where there was someone who made and we they would call it a lie. The person would probably say, "I just forgot. I
Hmm.
didn't know exactly who you were talking about." Because they when I say they, the FBI has come and interrogated our brothers and sisters, and they've asked questions like, "Who is Ahmed?"
Hmm.
Right? And the answer is I don't know. I don't know who Ahmed is, or were you praying with Ahmed? I don't think so. No, not Ahmed. And then you didn't ask, well, which Ahmed, right? Or when, what
Right.
date? But these are the savvy things that really you as a layperson, you're not going to know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why catching that at the cough level is if they come to your door, you
Mm-hmm.
keep them at the door.
Mm-hmm.
You ask to see a warrant.
Mm-hmm.
You ask them to put that warrant to the window and
Mm-hmm.
you read it outside. Or you can step outside, but you don't even have to do all of that. Ask them, put it to the window, let you read it. And I would advise also regularly have an attorney on call. That's the kind of work that I do. I
What if you
work with,
don't have a window?
if you don't have them slip it under the door,
Mm-hmm.
hold it up to the peephole, or you can step outside,
Mm-hmm.
and look at it. But most of us don't know what we're reading. So we
So
really need to be able to have an attorney handy so that the attorney can help you interpret what you're looking at to
right.
decide if they actually have it. Nine
So
times out of 10, they don't.
mhm.
So, you can say, I'd like to speak with my attorney before I speak with you. And then just, kindly say, so I'm going to close the door now. Thank you.
So a couple of things here. First of all, even and I've been teaching about how to deal with law enforcement for many years, I find it very hard to not open the door. And yes, I step outside because I've been like in the trenches for many years. But it's very hard for the layperson because knock, 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 FBI, open the door. You don't know what's happening. You want to open because you're afraid. So, but here's the other thing that what happens is when you say, if somebody listens to us right now and say, okay, I would like to speak with my attorney. Sometimes people tell me that they are told, the FBI tells them, why do you need an attorney? What do you have to hide? Did you do
Mm-hmm.
something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What would be the answer to something like that?
That happened to my family. The exact same thing happened to my family.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we are having these conversations. And this is why I love having these conversations now, not
Mm-hmm.
after, but now, because we have to be prepared for this. We have to, and that's what the book is about. We have to open our eyes and recognize that the law is impacting us, whether we think we're engaging in it or not,
Mm-hmm.
whether we see the red and blue lights behind us or not. We
Mm-hmm.
are we are living in a world of laws. And so we have to understand that certain things can happen. And
Mm-hmm.
even if it hasn't happened to you yet, but Muslims, we're all 2-3 degrees separation of somebody who the FBI has called. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people. The FBI called my mom. There was an agent who called my mother and said, we'd like you to come down and have a conversation. This was in 2003, so a couple of years after September 11th. She was the advisor of the Muslim Students Association. I don't think it's during my time, but shortly after that, professor at the university, ran a national Islamic nonprofit, right? So we've had these kinds of calls. And when she did, she asked them, hold on, I'll get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
She was able to contact her attorney because she works with our organization as well and has their
Mm-hmm.
their legal access plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the attorney was awesome. They got more upset than we even knew to be, and they advised her and they told her the three most powerful words in the English language. They
Mm-hmm.
said, go back and tell that FBI agent, my attorney said,
Mm-hmm.
talk to you. And if you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to me, you can put it in writing. And exactly what you said, that FBI agent said. They said, what do you have an attorney for? You don't have, what do you have something to hide? And because my mother was empowered, because she had the access, and because she had the access, I think really is the key, because a lot of us are scared if we don't have the access. That means we don't know. She was
Mm-hmm.
able to say, this is America and it's my right. And that
Mm-hmm.
agent never bothered us again. And they likely went on to another poor, unsuspecting brother or sister in the community who just
Mm-hmm.
let them in the door and didn't understand.
Right.
So it behooves our entire community to wise up, to get legally savvy. It's
Right.
no more, it's a I'm gonna say it's a crime, not a
Mm-hmm.
crime, but it's really bad if we
Right.
aren't teaching our kids to be legally savvy.
Right.
It's a crime if we as leaders in our community aren't teaching our community members, be legally savvy. This is America. It's not where you came from. It's not how you grew up in the past. So this is America. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to understand what this is. Because when you let them in your door, it's hard to get them out. And we've seen plenty of instances where there have been brothers and sisters who they came in and they thought it was going to be a quick chat because that's what was said at the door. And it turned into 4 hours. And it later turned into, I know that your immigration status is up for renewal and your citizenship is up. And it turns into, will you be an informant? And it turns into, and they already have the questions, they already have the answers. And so they knew if you were at the mosque with Ahmed, but so you don't want to get into a situation where you're talking with law enforcement. So the key is for us as a community to practice. This is what the leaders in the civil rights movement did. They weren't haphazard when they were engaging in, the civil challenges that they were doing. And none of that was just haphazard. They practiced. They were in the basements of the church. They brought the students in. They said, we're getting ready to go march, but if this happens, what do you say? They teach them. If this happens, what do you do? They teach them. Practice. Say it. What if they ruffle your feathers? What if they spray you with that fire? What if they do this? What if they do that? Thank God most of us aren't being sprayed with fire hoses right now, but there are places that, it's getting intense. Right? We can't forget that it is getting intense. So we have to practice. And if we're not doing this as a community, take this book and do it as a family and rehearse. I have parts in there where I say, rehearse this. Rehearse this with your young person as a teenager before they get their driver's license. Rehearse it with them before they go and drive. Teach them how to say, I'd like to speak with my attorney. I invoke my right to remain silent, because these are the things that are going to help mitigate these issues. Is it going to prevent every single thing? No, but it's going to mitigate a lot of these issues that we see out there. And it's with the knowledge, with having this knowledge and practicing it.
Right. The book, once more, is Legally Savvy, and there are 50 different hacks on how to navigate the American legal and judicial system in a way that the layperson could understand and afford at the same time. And as Zarinah mentioned a couple of times already, let's deal with the cough before it turns into a full-blown pneumonia. So let's talk about something light, something funny that you included.
Let's talk about something funny. Well, I have a lot of great vignettes in there that can definitely, bring a chuckle to your mind and your eye. And I think a lot of even the hard subjects try to keep it light, right? So
it is written in a very witty way. Congratulations, you did a really good job.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So, we have parts in there that are about, I call it skip the fighting, put it in writing, if we're able to be just kind of more proactive, even when we're doing business with family members. Sometimes we think we're with family members, what's the worst that can happen? Right? And so we think, just a handshake is still going to be a good arrangement, or we, three best friends want to do a business together, and they've always said, you make the best cakes and you're really good with marketing and you're really good with numbers. Let's just all, sell your cakes. And they don't, provide any documentation or put anything into paper, reduce anything to writing. These are also areas that we get into where it's, these, you want to catch issues while they're good still, right? So that they can stay good. A lot of times we think lawyers are just for bad things. They're for great things. So if you do want to start a business, for example, and I talk about a story of someone who was getting ready to start a business with a friend, and the friend had access to an attorney, so they had their attorney draft the contract. And their idea was it was going to be a partnership. And so this friend said they got the paperwork back from the other friend's attorney, and they said, I trust my friend, of course, but I want to be smart, so I'm going to have it, have my attorney review it. And they're so glad they did, because when their attorney reviewed it, their attorney said, I thought you said this was a partnership. And they said, it is. Absolutely. That's what their attorney drafted. And they said, this is absolutely not what is written here on the paper.
Wow.
What is written here is a sole proprietorship. And so the friend who wasn't the original drafter, right? They would have put their money in. They were literally about to put their money in for this partnership.
Right.
But they skipped out of that arrangement and the friendship. Said, but even if you think, right? I mean, of course, they said, what in the world is this? So it's important for us to remember that in good times, even, right? It's important to be legally savvy, because we could, find ourselves in a scenario where it's not what we think it is. And so I always say, don't sign a contract you don't know how to get out of.
Right. After being burned so many times from I give you my word thing, Now I do not deal with any words. I deal with papers.
There you go. That's a good one.
I want to. I want you to do this and this and this for me. Sure.
Yeah,
Put
yeah.
it in paper and send it to me.
Send it to me. Let's review it. Right?
So,
We
at the very
we
least, if our memories betrayed us, at least we have something that we signed together and we agreed together on it from the beginning. So, there is no room for misinterpretation or memory loss or any, you know, or
that's
anything happens to any of us, God forbid, then we have something written, available, and notarized if need be, to show that this is what we wanted to do and this is what we got into. So
beautiful.
definitely a great point. Okay, so we're getting to the final stretch. I want to squeeze at least one or two more topics from the book, one of hacks. So tell me.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's see. We had some really good information in there about when we're dealing with our religious law and it's related to our civil law. So
Mhm.
I think I'll touch on that here because this is something that we have. It's beautiful, but if we aren't preparing and we're not figuring out really how to have our religious laws upheld, then we're really out of luck here.
Okay.
So one of those things, I'll include is it's important to be able to get our wills done.
Hmm.
Getting our wills done, having that in writing, so that it's actually going to get to the people that we wanted to get it to. If we don't have a will, the state that we live in has a will for us. And
Right.
it's not what we're going to want, right? It's not
Hmm.
what we want. So this is something that we definitely want to take care of and have as well. If we don't have a will, if you have minor children and you don't designate who will be the guardian for your children, who makes that decision?
Mm.
A judge who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your child, who doesn't know the maybe auntie who you would rather auntie, right? Who's not even blood relative. You'd rather take care of your kid than them being sent back maybe overseas or to another area because your kids grew up in a particular area and that auntie practices your faith maybe the same way that you do rather than the family even,
Mm.
right? So these are things that are important to keep in mind
If
as well.
if one of either the husband and the wife passes away, do the children automatically they go with the other parent, surviving parent, correct?
Correct.
But
So if both parents pass away,
in
then
case of both parents, right? So
exactly.
it's now up to the judge, unless there is a will that is done properly, and depending on your state, either just witnessed or witnessed and notarized.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
on average, let's say in Arizona, for example, how much a will for a person or a family would cost?
Yeah, so a will can be anywhere from, on average, $500 to $2,000. A
Hmm.
will, right? It could be up. So, but there are programs like legal plan programs where you're able to get that, and it doesn't cost anything. So there are ways to be able to get that taken care of by attorneys in your state, estate
Hmm.
planning attorneys, and it's not going to be a mortgage payment to get that taken
Right.
care of. But this is,
So.
absent having that, kind of a legal plan,
Hmm.
most people don't get it done, right? They're like, mortgage payment or my will, or
Hmm.
put the kids through in one more year of private school or my will. So
Right.
we know why people procrastinate with getting that done. But
Right.
also a lot of us don't realize it's that important because maybe we come from places that it wasn't talked about or the
Hmm.
country took care of it, and so we didn't have that done, and we thought that it's the same situation today and now, but it's not.
Hmm. Even though it's there is this hadith that says the believer for Muslims, the believer should not sleep 3 nights without a will there. Like it shouldn't be a period of 3 nights without an updated will. I would be remiss if I don't mention in this case, because you mentioned the pricing, and of course each state has its own pricing. New York and California would be more price what's call it, more expensive than other places like Kansas or Arizona. But my friend Abed Ayub, who's a law professor and a lawyer, uh, established this organization called Shariawiz, and basically he gives you the will and the power of attorney and a healthcare proxy together for $250, just one time pay, and you can update them for the rest of your life. if you update a will with a lawyer, you have to pay again. Like if it's not this thing, so it's ready and available, particularly for the Muslim community. Shariawiz.com. So hopefully people can benefit from that. Right. So would be your last hack to talk about in this case?
The last hack I would say, would be to focus on understanding that being legally savvy is a choice.
Hmm.
Just like learning about reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? It's a skill that we can
Mhm.
pick up. And so if we choose to be legally savvy, because now once you hear this information, you can't unhear it, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to go back into the hole now and say, oh, forget it.
Mhm.
I'm buying a house and yeah, it has all of this legalese and this paperwork and sure, it's $500,000, but alhamdulillah, or let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. That other person on the other side looks honest, would say
Mhm.
things like that. Choose to be legally savvy. And it's not just about you, it's about your family, it's about your community. Flexing your legal muscle is a practice. And if
Mhm.
we don't do it often, then we're not going to be ready when it is a even more severe and serious situation that we're in. So, choose to be legally savvy.
Right.
Choose to encourage your family members to be legally savvy. To
Right.
encourage your children to be legally savvy, because legally savvy children grow up to be legally savvy adults. And being legally savvy adults means that again, our communities can be we can remove the target from our back. My goal is to reduce the amount of "I wish I knews" in that I hear, right, and
Mm.
that we have within the world. I wish I knew, because this is information that we can know. Sometimes people
Right.
say there isn't a book about it. You just have to wing it through life. You just have to, life is a gamble, right? And you'll never know. And Muslims
Mhm.
again, we say, oh, alhamdulillah, just trust in God. But we have to tie our camel. So choose to
Definitely.
be legally savvy.
Definitely. The book is Legally Savvy by Zarinah Nadir, a lawyer and former head of MSA and an activist in Phoenix, Arizona. 50 hacks to help you in love, life, and business, written for the layman to understand in simple and witty, funny language. Highly recommended, easily readable, and a gift to people of the United States who do not belong to the Rockefellers or the Clintons or the Trumps, or those who have access to lawyers 24/7. Zarina, I cannot thank you enough, not only for writing the book, but for coming to my show and telling us your story and the book. I hope this is the beginning of many more shows that you would come on to give us your legal expertise. And thank you very much, and good luck for your next project.
Thank you so much, Isham. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes tonight's episode with Zarina Nadir, author of Legally Savvy. The show, of course, is on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Like us, it is Vantage Points on YouTube, Vantage Points TV on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you very much. There are hashtags and there is a hashtag. This is the hashtag. Good night, America.